Hailing back from the days of Medarot 5, it's an exceptionally normal looking type model that does not sport an animal, machine, or insect motif by any means. It is BOY00 Hashimukou, with a kit of anti-air, double rifle, biped legs, and the leg ability of Assail, which grants the shoot boost effect to self when charging Metaforce. Now, Hashimukou specifically has been a model that has been stuck in the enemy-only NPC area for quite some time. While he's most certainly not a stranger to Medarot S currently, this is going to be the first ever instance at time of recording of him being an earnable model as an event reward that players can earn and collect. And even as an event reward, it's a very fairly well-rounded model that may not be overtly powerful or broken or fast by any means, but especially for new players that are starting out, he may just be that beginner's best friend to help carry him through a lot of harder content until other models can come and go. Anti-air on the head part is a shooting-based skill that has a rather unique damage condition to it, and that condition is when attacking an enemy with flight-type legs or switch to flight-type legs, such as through Hyper Tornado or even regular Tornado, that damage is increased to ×7, making it an immensely powerful and extremely crippling type blow in the right situation. And this means that while it may be relatively iffy on its own with a modest base power in the 600s, you really do want to try to target that when fighting people of using flight legs or even pairing it with somebody that uses Tornado, make it just a little easier for Hashimukou in that respect. Rifle on both arms are conventional shooting skills that you can never ever go wrong with using for their incredible balance across the board when it comes to stats, power, success, you name it. It is basically your beginner's best friend when it comes to learning the ropes. And with very solid and modest skills with success in the in the high 1200s, almost 1300s, base power just shy of 1000, and heating and cooling alternating between mid 600s to low 800s, they're relatively consistent arms that, even if they need just a little bit of raising, are going to be very solid, and very solid part fillers at that, if you're looking for something just to kind of fill in a hole. Biped legs means that Hashimukou will have relatively solid coverage across all terrains and relatively diverse terrain compatibility as well. Nothing really to remark about him as far as anything game-breaking or fancy or brand new, but it's sometimes the most normal looking of the models that has the most unique feel when it comes to what players are looking for. With a base mobility of 689, while Hashimukou is most certainly on the lower end when it comes to mobility, he's definitely not chugging along either, and as you can stay within the high 600s at your very lowest cutoff to the low 700s or even mid 700s is kind of your sweet spot. Anything above that is great, but if you fall below 650, that's where you're really starting to lag behind. An evade of 949 isn't too terrible, as it means he can dodge or graze fairly well. A melee resist of 728 is unfortunately not all that great though, as this does mean that he is going to really struggle when fighting anyone trying to get up close and personal in his space, i.e., if someone tries to bully him and stand in his space, that's where he starts to cower. But with a shoot resist of 1310, he does kind of comp that back just a little bit, as this does mean that he can kind of hold his own and exchange pot shots with the enemy sniper from afar. When it comes to armor, he's packing about 3419 for the head, about 3059 per arm, and just shy of 38, almost 3900 for the legs, so not really anything overly impressive there either as far as numbers are concerned. But really the big charm to Hashimukou is the fact that his normalness is kind of his biggest charm, as it means he doesn't require anything flashy, he doesn't have any conditional bonuses, minus of course anti-air, and Assail on there when he chooses to charge Metaforce grants him a stack of shoot boost to kind of bolster his relatively low damage. So he's relatively synergetic unto itself, and a model that can be used basically right out of the box. Whether that means you use him as a pure set or use him as filler parts, as mixed parts, you can use him basically anywhere. That being said though, as a pure set score, I still do have to rate Hashimukou a relatively middle of the road 6.5 out of 10. Assuming all ideal situations, as I usually do when I grade models for pure and mixed sets, Hashimukou, as normal as he's looking like I said, is still relatively good at what he does. with very high success stats means that he's not going to have any issues with people trying to dodge or graze him, and while his damage may not be all that great, his very high heat and cool stats will most certainly really help him get back and forth across the field really easily. And even if you choose to mix his legs up with something different, you can still use him pretty effectively. As mixed parts though, I do have to rate him just a little bit higher at a 7 out of 10. While one of the biggest weaknesses of Hashimukou is the fact that he isn't necessarily the fastest or the most powerful, maybe swapping his legs out for something a little bit faster and more suited for him that can be used immediately, or swapping one of his arms out or even his head for something different and more synergetic, you can use his parts basically anywhere. And while I wouldn't necessarily recommend his legs with no heavy support and relatively modest stats, like I said, his head and arms are most certainly going to be great filler you can use more or less basically anywhere in places that you need them.